The Luxury of Discipline, a series about how change has nothing to do with force, but starts with permission. I have my notes here because I want to absolutely give you as much value as I possibly can. So let's take a minute and think back to the start of the year when you felt energized, when you felt excitement, momentum, there was a rush. You said to yourself, this is the year you actually make a difference. You felt ready for change, hungry for change. However, time has slipped. You feel yourself back into your old habits, your old ways, and that New Year's spirit feels like a distant memory. And if you're watching this with me currently live right now, it's April. And I want to propose a thought experiment that this is the actual new year. April is actually when it starts, actually when you can begin. Because like changing the oil in a car, you need to drain the old oil first. And I feel like the last 3 months were just that. You needed to have that desire to change, maybe take a few steps forward, slip a few steps back, to now feel ready again. And if it's not April, that's also okay, because it's never too late to start. The window to start is never closed fully, only in your head, truly, which we're going to get into regarding permission. I hope to remind you, as much as I'm reminding myself, that in a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I will have always wished that I started sooner, that I started before. So in that notion, it's never too late, because whether you're 25, 55, 75, I would argue that you would have hoped you started a few years before, a decade before, 2 decades before. So it's really truly never too late until it's actually too late and you're no longer here. So what does it mean to approach change without force and instead start with giving yourself permission? It relates to giving yourself permission, firstly, to let go of the belief that it's too late, because that's a rule you set on yourself, and that's a belief that you're holding inside of yourself that's actually holding you back. So what if, for fun, you acted delusional and pretended that it's actually not too late? So starting there, change means letting go of the identity, the narrative that you've been holding on to. The identity of yourself, the narrative of your life, the narrative of your history, your family, your culture, where you live, the society you've constructed your identity within. You have to let go of the version of yourself that you currently are, or the version of yourself that you've been. Because whether you know it or not, you're holding on to that. And that is causing friction. That is causing friction and inhibiting the next version of you from coming alive. Kind of like the caterpillar. If the caterpillar never went into its cocoon and allowed itself to incubate, it could never become the next version of itself, which is the butterfly. Another fun question I hope to propose is, did you know that you're allowed to change? You're allowed to change what you once liked. You're allowed to change the goals you once had. You're allowed to change the people you like, the people you dislike. You're allowed to change your coffee order. You're allowed to change your mind. And as silly and straightforward as it sounds to me saying this now, a previous version of myself tightly held on to what I once wanted, the goals I was striving for, the person I held myself to be, and without realizing it, that was stopping me from becoming the next version of myself, which arguably is a better version of myself. And I don't want you to make the same mistake for as long as I did. So I want you to rephrase some things. Instead of saying, this is just who I am, challenge yourself and say, I have historically been. For example, you could say, I've always been someone who's late. That's just who I am. I'm always running late. I'm always in a rush. What if you change that and said, historically, I've been someone who's often late. Historically, I'm someone who's rushed. Perhaps change to you feels like you're throwing it all away. Perhaps you pursued a certain degree pathway and you feel like it's throwing it all away, if you change your mind and change what career path you want to take. Speaking to myself here, I studied the full track of STEM, biochem undergrad, master's in food science, and now I work in tech. Nothing to do with my degrees. For the longest time, I held on to the belief that I had thrown it all away, largely because of external influences, my family posing that question to me. And for the longest time, I did believe them. I did believe that I had wasted my time, that I'd thrown it all away. But what if you rephrased that belief? If I change my mind, it'll be a waste of time. It will mean I've thrown it all away. What if you changed that and said, actually, everything I've done up until this point are things that I can do and use to unlock the next version of me. Along this path, I've stacked skills and experiences that can help unlock the next version of me. It's not throwing it all away. The question is, how can you use it to your advantage? The third thing is this belief that if you change now, it means you've failed before. And I want you to release that. I want you to release this notion that another story I have for you with regards to giving myself permission and perhaps encouraging you to do the same is this narrative I used to tell from growing up in London and then going to college and university in California. I used to say, I will never live in a city again. I want sunshine. I want palm trees. City living is not for me. Yet, current day, I now live in New York City. So I think I had to go through quite a long journey of unraveling that narrative that I set for myself and allowing myself to be honest that I was actually curious about living in a city again, that I was actually curious about having 4 seasons and wearing coats and boots. If I never allowed myself permission, gave myself permission to change my interests and change my mind, I would not be living the life I'm living today, which is fulfilling me and making me very happy. I did not fail. I am not a hypocrite because I changed my mind. It's actually very natural to change our mind. And I don't understand why I believe that change was so bad when I simultaneously believe that a growth mindset is healthy. If you think change is failure, that's almost asserting that staying fixed is ideal. But that is false. I don't want to stay fixed. I always want to grow, evolve, become the next version of me. Yeah, if I'm holding on to this belief that change is failure, then that's precisely in conflict with the desire to always grow, to always evolve. I think what it came down to is realizing that becoming the next version of me is going to cost me the current version. Becoming the next version of you that perhaps eats healthier is going to cost you the version of you who makes less healthy choices. It's going to perhaps cost you some friendships. It's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you things that once brought you joy so that you can discover new things that bring you joy. You must stop clinging to the things that don't light you up anymore. If something gives you joy because it once gave you joy, so you have a sense of nostalgia about it perhaps, but you experience a sense of friction at precisely the same time, then that's something I urge you to question. For example, if you always went to Taco Tuesday or margaritas after work with your coworkers, and you do get enjoyment from it because it is fun, it's social, it's a good time, the food's probably delicious. But when you're in this experience, you sense an underlying friction because the next version of you is craving something different. The next version of you wants you to make a different choice, but you continue to make the same choices. Then that's clinging on to things that don't fully light you up anymore. And that's a recipe for disaster over time. And that's a recipe for keeping you the same. And if we want to change, we have to let go of those habits that don't align fully anymore with that next version of ourselves. We have to ask ourselves, how would that version of ourselves actually show up? How would that version of ourselves actually choose in this situation? I seek to remind you that what you once wanted, what you once enjoyed, what you once did, what you once chose doesn't define your future. Just because you've always been a certain way, which in and of itself is false, because little baby you crawling on the floor who didn't even know how to walk is very different from adult you. So you have changed throughout your life drastically. And I just want you to remind yourself of that freedom that you have and responsibility that you have when it comes to decisions and when it comes to choice. Allowing yourself to grow often starts with one small thing. So as we go through this series, The Luxury of Discipline, we must start with permission. If you can't give it to yourself, I give it to you. I give you permission to unlock and become that next version of yourself. And before we leave and close out this episode, what is one small thing you could do? One tiny thing today. One tiny thing. Is it wearing a hair clip in your hair? Is it switching the part? Is it wearing a color when you usually wear black? Is it wearing a different coat, different pair of shoes? Is it trying a new workout class? Is it ordering a different coffee at the coffee shop? Getting something new for lunch? Is it saying hi to the coworker you usually just pass by in the hallway? Is it calling your mum because that's been lingering on the back of your mind? Is it saying, hey, I'm not going to go to drinks after work this week, but I'm allowed to go next week if I want to. But this week I'm not going to go. Just one small change, one small thing, and just giving yourself the freedom to experiment. What would it be like to give yourself permission? Okay, until next time, I can't wait to see you and talk about this stuff some more. Bye.